Hey, Cozy Gloves here. I'm wearing a hat, and today we're going to be going over additional workflows and just nifty shortcuts to know about the playlist editor. Should be a short video. We're going to be going over a little bit more obscure features that people may not know about and could come very, very handy dandy. So let's say, for example, you're working on a track, right? And you've got your intro and your drop, and you've been working for a while, and then you realize, junk. I want to insert a bar here. I want a fill. I want to put a drum fill right there. But now you have the issue of, oh, well, let's just say that you're really full, because occasionally I'll have crap all the way like down here and they'll start at weird spots. And so I have to like try and select it and scoot it all over the same amount, and it becomes a mess. So there's a better way to do this. If you simply select the area in the timeline you want to insert the bar at, hold down Control on your keyboard and hit Insert. Bang. Like that. That is such a cool tool. It's one of the greatest tools ever. Hold Insert and bang. There's I think Alt does something else. Oh, this is what I forgot. Alt, if you hold down, if you put your mouse over something, I don't even think you need to hold down Alt. Just put your mouse over it and hit Insert, and it will automatically chop it wherever your mouse is at. It's very addicting to do. But as you can see, it's chopping as I hit Insert. And it's just, it's slicing. Well, it's basically slicing. It's another shortcut for slice. I like this one, but if you are like right here and you want to slice this one, you can just put your mouse there and hit that. Now, it is off the grid, which is something that you should be aware of. Okay, so let's talk about another thing. This thing is called grouping. Sometimes you'll want to do things. You want clips to be grouped. Say you have a bunch of vocals that you want to be grouped together. So if you mute one, it mutes them all. You want to treat them like that. Sort of like the advantage of having them all in a subgroup, and then you turn them off just on the mixer. But you want to be able to do this from the playlist editor. Well, there is a way to do this. You can group things by simply selecting them and hitting Shift G. You'll notice a little lock icon comes up, and whatever you do to one, you do to all. You move one, you move them all. So this could come in handy sometimes. It's not always the most useful, but yeah. And so if you delete them, deletes them all. Just poof, gone like that. I try making up sound. I don't know. It didn't really work. Okay, so anyways, so there's that option as well to ungroup them. So let's say you group these, and so we hit Shift G, and then you want to ungroup them. You're like junk. I believe it's Alt G ungroups them. Yep, Alt G ungroups them. Alternatively, you can come in here to the menu, go to group, and you have these options here. Now, moving on. So those are some really cool things that you can do. If you hit home, it will take your playlist guy all the way to the beginning. That's a very handy dandy thing. In Pro Tools, you just hit return, and it always goes back to the beginning. Home is a little more out of the way. And Sony Vegas Pro 13, I believe, it's Control over to get back. I constantly want to go back to the beginning, and it's kind of interesting. One thing I'm kind of curious about. Oh yeah, it will. So if you make a selection, it'll go to the beginning of your selection. I think it does that automatically. If you hit home, yeah. So if you're in a selected area, it will also do that. And I hit Control D to deselect, because I've gotten in the habit of that now. But you can hold down Control and click on your timeline, but then occasionally I have this mess going on. Usually when I'm recording, I'm not sure what it is about recording that messes it up. But I learned that Control D, not Control S, Control D will deselect your area. Cool. Moving on. So now let's talk about these guys up here. Now we've already sort of talked about the waveform editor, but you see that we have the Z cross option. So if we were to grab a thing, right, a piece of audio, where the zero crossing is the point where this waveform crosses the zero line. If we were to open this up, hit Control E, this line right here, this line down, straight down the middle, that's the zero crossing point. What this does is when you're moving audio, it'll snap to the near zero crossing point. This helps avoid clicks. Another thing that helps avoid clicks, if maybe you're making pretty aggressive chops, is just to use generic bleeding. That way, if you make a chop like this, you see that we have this like sort of little fade, and that allows us to have those sharp chops that maybe aren't on zero crossing points. So using them together, you can get something really cool. And we also have the stretch. Now, the stretch option will utilize whatever mode you have here. So if you're in like mono 3 and you were to hit Shift M, we've already talked about this in the last video, it will stretch it according to that stretch setting. If we were to change this to resample, you see the waveform changes. And you actually see there's quite a bit more in the mono. So it's an interesting deal. I want to know what it sounds like. Yep. That's some good stuff. Okay, so now let's talk about the automation. Now, the automation is really simple. So right click and hit A to automate something. So I'm assuming you already know the basics of automation. So this is pretty much everywhere in FL, but in Step, you can basically draw And then if you hold down hold down your right click, holy cow, hold down your right click and then drag, and you can delete a lot of points at the same time. And slide allows you to put a point and drag all other points around. Usually I want slide and step off. I just want things to stay in the middle without moving the surrounding points. But occasionally you will want to go in here, especially on step, to delete just a lot of points. Be like, oh, I want rid of this, and it's gone. There's usually a hold shift for pulse mode. That's kind of cool. If you hold down shift, it doesn't let you go up or down. It just lets you go back or forth if you want to keep a level. I believe alt is the other version. Nope. Alt lets you go off the grid. That's another thing that's just basic in FL Studios. I didn't know about the shift thing. Normally, I just zoom in and I just move it where I want. But one thing I do end up using a lot is Alt. Alt will let you pretty much always go off the grid. So if you hold down Alt while you're moving a clip, for example, so we chop this up, hold down Alt, we can move it off the grid. Versus now it snaps on the grid. Super, super handy. I use it all the time. It allows me to move really fast when I'm editing. Okay, so now let's talk about this last one. This last one's a little weird. These are the patterns. And what these reflect, these three, they change the color of the notes inside pattern clips. So we got to put some notes up in here. So we're going to just hit Control-A to delete everything. We're going to lay down a couple patterns. So first we'll lay down a complete pattern 2. And I'm in the paint tool, which is weird. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to make these notes pink. And to do that, you come up here and you have these 16 colors. They're also correlated with 16 MIDI channels. We're going to ignore that. So basically, we're just going to use them as colors. So we're just going to put down a bunch of pink notes, basically. And we're going to drag them out so we can see their pinkness. And then we're going to make another pattern by hitting numeric pad number 2. And it will automatically take you to pattern 2. And we're going to lay down some, these sort of tan, I don't know, sort of pinkish orange color ones, whatever. We're going to lay down a couple of those and hit 3 to go to 3. And we'll lay down a couple, green ones. And now we're going to lay down these various patterns. So first we'll put down a bunch of pattern 3. So 3, 3, 3. And then we'll lay down a bunch of pattern 2. So 2, 2, 2. And then a bunch of pattern 1. 2, 2, 2. And you see that right now we have notes selected and it shows us the color of the note on each of these. I'm going to change the color of this one by hitting R. And I'm simply going to make this one like this bluish color. And so you see that the color remains the same. I'm going to make this one some sort of like a red. Okay. So we have this going on, right? Now this could come in handy sometimes. I don't know. Maybe your workflow is a little different. But if we hit channel now, the notes will change and they'll reflect the color of the channel generally. I mean, this is I'm pretty like, you see this is like sort of a bluish to match. If we were to change this to like a, and the channel, what the junk am I talking about? Not this channel. These are the patterns. The channel's over here. So for example, if we wanted this kick, which is on pattern 1, to change color, the channel color right now is this grayish. The reason there's different hues is because the patterns themselves, we just changed their colors. That's why they changed hues. Now, if we go over here and go to, I'm just going to shift click to get to this. We can make the notes change because we're going to change the color of the kick. And so this is very useful. So let's say it's yellow. Now, wherever we see yellow, we will know that that is the kick. What I recommend doing is having a bunch of things, like all your drums be like orange or something. And that way you can see where your drums are in your patterns just by glancing at your playlist. A lot of times this information is useful, but not always super useful. They give you a general idea what's in there, but not always like a specific idea of what. Sometimes you get a little confused. So if you come up with a color scheme, you can simply hit channel and see note. I feel like note's a little less useful. I've never really used note, but I'm sure there are workflows that have it incorporated. But channel, I can see, is very useful because you come over here and you color your channels. This is your channel rack, not your patterns. I don't even know what I was talking about with the pattern thing. Now, the last one is patterns. So you hit patterns and you see note color. If we look over here in our hint bar, it says note color and pattern clips, pattern parent pattern. So anyways, they change now to match the color. And you see they are quite vibrant in this case. And so that's pretty much it. Now let's talk about another thing you can do. So that could or could not be useful to you. I think the channel one is the most useful of the three. Now, another thing that you can do here is you can group channels and you can right click and hit G to group, or you can simply click and drag to group or ungroup. So you see if I drag up, it'll drag it and it will group it. But if I drag it up again, it will ungroup it. I've got to drag it up all the way. And if you do it faster, it like, I guess it knows. There's some sort of threshold. And you see there's like two sort of mini sizes. There's like a small and then it snaps a little bit smaller. So we have like that, and then it can go even smaller. See, that's a tiny bit smaller than before. Maybe it's just me. I think it's just me. Anyways, what's cool about this is you can group things and you can have them all take on the quality of this guy, of the parent track. So if you like want to, you could right click and well, first let's shift click, make it some color, right? We'll make it like something bold, like pink or purple. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna hit this. We're gonna hit auto color group, and it's in here somewhere. Colored auto color group. Here it is. Hit it and bang, it will color all the ones. So that's I don't know. Some people do this to organize their automation and stuff. I have it in several of my templates just as a thing that you can do. Another thing that is very handy dandy is if you middle mouse click up here, or is it just right click? It's just right click. If you right click up here, you get this pattern, this is really, so you have patterns, channels, and all. This is your pattern picker. I don't know the official term for it. There is an official term. But you see you have your patterns, but what's really cool is if you hover over your kick, or if you had a synthesizer with notes, it'll show you all, you see this yellow line shows up here? It will show you all the clips that you utilize that piece of audio, and so, or that synthesizer or whatever. So if you're having trouble finding something, you can simply click there and be brought to this menu and find stuff super fast. It'll also preview your stuff if you hover over it. So that's kind of an interesting deal. So when you right click to get out of that menu. So it's a very, very simple thing. It's very similar to the plugin picker. Now, there is a couple other options that we should talk about. One of them is the options to view your files in here. So if we go into like a chord, right? Let's say that we want this, and I'm going to turn that way down. Cool. Now, right now, you can see it like this. Usually I want it like this, but occasionally I need to see stereo information because I'm making calls that involve stereo cues and stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click over here on the actual channel. If it's not showing up, just double click it. And you can go to multi-channel waveform view. So you can see all the channels of audio. So you see I have two channels, and they're very similar. But are they exactly the same? Nope, they are different. So it is a stereo piece of information. So that's kind of nice to know. And so I normally work in the mono view because once I know it's stereo, but occasionally I'll need to pull this out. So another thing is you can also see the spectral view. So you can see it on a spectrum level. And if we were to zoom this up, you can like get a better look at it. It's a lot's going on in there. Okay, now let's talk about one more thing. I'm going to take off multi-channel and spectrum. It's not a multi-channel spectrum view either. It's just your normal view. Cool. Another thing that you should know about this is if you hold down Alt, I've always just used the left Alt because in FL, the Alts sometimes do different things. If you hold down Alt and click on one of your unusually sized channel strips, it'll return it to its default size. So if you have a lot of things that are like kind of small, you can go over and hit Alt and return them to their normal size. That's a quicker way of getting to things. Another thing you should know is when you have something in this micro, like as tiny as it can go, when you hold down Control and middle mouse wheel to zoom like this, it does not zoom the tiny ones. They stay tiny, which can be very desirable sometimes. So you see they do not zoom in and out. But if we hold down Alt and click on them, we can zoom them out. Sometimes if you have it in a particular way, a little down arrow will appear that will allow you to, you just click it and it'll expand all the way. But a lot of the times I don't get that arrow, and so I use that instead. So I'm sure there's like a particular condition that has to be met for it to work, but I don't know what that condition is. So along with those things, that's pretty much it. Those are the ones that I use. The big ones that I felt like were like crazy news to me was when I learned about them, at least, was the insert like this. And so when you hit insert, it will insert a thing here. It's not doing it right now though, because we are so cool. Oh, you have to hold down Control insert. And occasionally if things line up weird, you have to deal with this and it doesn't perfectly insert it. That's just something you're gonna have to like sort of live with. If they are all starting at that same point though, it'll move them all over. And it does have to do with the size. So if I continue to hold down Control and hit insert, it will continue to insert. In this case, oh, I'm hitting delete, my bad. Yeah, you can also delete like that. But if you insert, it'll continue to insert a space of that size. So that could be very, very handy. And of course, the delete's kind of handy as well. So if we wanted to like insert this amount of space, we do that and bang, this amount of space is now inserted between the two. But if this guy's like hanging over and this guy's hanging over, it doesn't care. It only affects the beginnings of these clips. So if they're the endings of other clips are in your space, it's not going to work. The other big thing was this snap setting up here. So I use Alt a lot to go through and move things off the grid. So I'll zoom in, especially if I'm working on like samples or something, like I'm making a instrument of some kind for contact. I'll be like zooming in like crazy. So I'll hit F11 and I'll change my PPQ so I can zoom in a lot farther. I know it takes more CPU, but I'm specifically doing this to zoom in closer on Waveform. So I'll zoom in, you can get a lot farther that way. Pro Tools, you can get way closer, but I just do not like, I just work faster in FL. So I prefer FL for that kind of stuff. But that's an option, and so I prefer to do that. And then I showed you some of those methods about how to edit things very quickly in the other video. But one thing is when I'm doing orchestral composition, I love to come up here and turn this guy off. And so I have to put everything on the grid like so. Like there's no snap setting, so I can just put things approximately where they should go on the grid. And if I zoom out enough, I can roughly see where like my quarter notes are. Like here's the bars and here's are the 16ths. And I zoom in, I can get a little more exact, but it could get a little tedious trying to figure out, oh, where's the thing? So I'll go to my snap setting like that, and I'll use Alt to put them off the grid. But occasionally you just get a more realistic performance. Now, if you're doing I design my sample library. Sometimes I'll put in a little piece of script that actually causes the notes to vary a small amount. And if I'm going for backbeat fill, I can write this script that'll cause the notes to be off by like a couple, milliseconds or whatever. Something really, really tiny, but enough to create a feel. So yeah, so that's something I'll do just as a sort of specific thing for my library. Some people will write in hat lines and they'll delay them by a little bit. Sometimes they'll use the what is this called? The sampler channel to come in and create a delay using the options you have available in there. I have a video about that in the FL12 effects series. And also, if you just look up sampler channel, you will find it. But other people will just kind of come in here and they'll select them all and they'll move them off a little bit, and then they'll move a couple forward so you still get some sort of a rhythmic feel, but you get more of a realistic feel. And then of course you randomize your velocities a little bit. You get some really cool sounding stuff. Sounds just a little more like real than before. It was like just exactly the same every single time. Boring. So not only that, but I'll also write a little script. And I've been doing this recently on the libraries I'm working on now, where they actually receive micro tuning, so the phase changes a little bit. Like not enough to change the actual tuning of the note, just enough to change the waveform so that it never hits quite the same way twice. So it's extra realistic. You can get a lot more out of one set of samples by using some of these techniques. And if you mix them, you get like a whole load of additional stuff. So anyways, that's like my shenagle on the playlist. That's pretty much every feature I use. Occasionally I'll come in here and grab specialized features and stuff, but that's pretty much it. Another thing that may be of use to you, honestly, I don't think it's like super important for this, but some people will quantize their patterns because they don't know how to use snap settings, I guess. I don't know what the deal is. It's an option you have though. So you can put in here, let's say that you put in a bunch of patterns that are in like weird spots. You can hit, I believe it's Alt Q. Well, I know where it is in the menu. So if we come over here to the menu, there's one thing in here that is tools, quick quantize start time. So it's Shift Q, and you see that it quantizes them for you. And I believe it quantizes them relative to the current snap setting you have active. But don't quote me on that. I never use that feature. It's just one that, I don't know, felt like sharing with you. If you have any questions, let me know. Subscribe, support me on Patreon, and have a blessed day.
Now it's like all the time in your mind, and you see the sign getting round, getting up and going down. Now you will see, and just you will be.